Right then, hello there, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, welcome aboard everybody. My name is Paul, I'm also called Knick-Knack, I'm the brains behind Knick-Knack's Daily Teaser, which is a fun daily brain teaser quiz. You'll find that, alongside a lot of my other content, lurking around underneath this eye in the top corner here. Okay, hit that, that'll take you to all sorts of things. Including, I should add, various bits and bobs that see me burbling on about films I've recently watched, and more infrequently, about TV shows I've watched. I do like to catch eye-catching TV, but not everything I want to watch is on the mainstream terrestrial channels. There's all sorts of odd stuff that's lurking around odd corners, and that's the kind of stuff I like to watch. At any rate, I have just started watching a series that's new to me. I've just started watching last night, in fact, on the 7th of September. I started watching the HBO series that is Lovecraft Country. Episode 1, Sundown, opens with a hallucinatory dream montage featuring Korean War veteran Atticus Freeman, played by Jonathan Majors, fighting his way through the trenches and facing an equally hallucinatory Princess Dejah Thoris from the Barsoom Chronicles of Edgar Rice Burroughs, just so you know. Atticus and Dejah are menaced by a bat-winged, tentacled, slimy thing that's thumped by a suitably heroic baseball player. The scene shifts and shows us Atticus waking up from a dream on a deeply segregated bus, heading home from the deeply segregated South whilst reading A Princess of Mars. He's heading home to Chicago's South Side after receiving a letter from his missing father, Montrose. It seems there's an unknown family legacy in the small town of Ardham. Montrose has vanished in the process of trying to find it in Devon County. Atticus is deeply concerned enough to ask his Uncle George, Courtney P. Vance, and Letty, an old school friend, Janie Smollett, along as both company and help. George writes a travel guide for African Americans, and Letty is along to provide emotional support and very good driving. Both are going to be needed. The trio are going to be heading into Devon County, down south of the Mason-Dixie line, and hideous, slimy, tentacled things are the least of their worries. Now, have I seen a good opening episode of what could be a strong TV show? Have I seen strong characters, good writing, good acting? Have I seen something that possibly teaches me both a history lesson and a lesson about today as well? And what's more, why did I start watching this? Let's do all sorts of things, but let's start with that last question. That question of why did I start watching this? I'll be honest, I've had Lovecraft Country on my to-be watched list for quite some months now. And I partly watched it yesterday because I had a free evening. It's Tuesdays, they're usually free. But also because I'd heard of the very recent death of actor Michael K. Williams, who I know is in the show. He plays Montrose, plays the main character's father. And I honestly have to admit, I can't remember seeing him in anything. I've never seen 12 Years a Slave, I've never seen The Wire. I honestly couldn't say I've seen him in anything. So starting on this series seemed an appropriate way to mark his death. It seemed a polite raise of the hat. It's a polite way of raising a hat and apologising to his memory for missing his work. Virtue signalling, I hear you say. I couldn't give a damn, frankly. I wanted to do the right thing rather than get a round of applause. Possibly brings up other things as well. Let's face it, it brings up and tells us about the USA's notoriously bad race relationship. a sundown town, which is where most of the episode is set. The main characters get chased out of one or two towns. A sundown town is a town occupied by mostly white Americans that black Americans had to be out of by sundown. In fact, there's a town called Minden, Nevada, I think it is, that rings a siren at 6 o'clock, whose roots are in basically telling the Native American workers to off out of town by 6:30. It is still being rung today. 21st century, so there's possibly the name of the episode and the things it shows us are still very relevant. And I've got to say, it's saying that to a white guy from southeast England who's grateful to have not been on the wrong end of racist behaviour. And he's also very aware that race relations in the UK and the US are, he says this with a pinch of salt, race relations are better than they were, but I'm very aware that any black British people, or Afro-Caribbean people, or black American people, African American people watching this are going to immediately turn around and say, well, they're better than they were, but point out that there's still a lot of work to go. Just ask any professional footballer. Just ask the three lads that were jeered at the recent Euro 2020 finals, give you an example. I suspect that the States is a lot worse still than it is here in Britain. We still hear stories of black Americans being shot by white American police. So things may have got better, but there is still quite a way to go. And this series, I think, wanted to address that, and does so quite blatantly. It really does. You've got to sit down and watch this episode, I think, because in one sense it's an education, although it may be preaching to the converted, but it is quite definitely an education. It's telling us stuff like this is still quite capable of being done by human beings like any of us watching this. It's also very much an education. Something I know Gene Roddenberry always used to try with Star Trek, his original series, was I think he always encouraged the writers to try and make a good liberal lefty point about racism, sexism, what have you. But he always emphasised, tell a bloody good story first. Tell a good story about whatever it is you're talking about. That's the way to get a point across. Tell a ripping good yarn. And what we have here, much like The Watchmen as well, and much like Star Trek, is something that's raising an issue, but telling us a bloody good story with it. Sundown is very well written. The ensemble cast are absolutely fantastic. Jonathan Majors playing Atticus, and Jenny Smollett as Letty are absolutely fantastic as a pairing, as is Courtney B. Vance as Uncle George. It's a fantastic, very entertaining, very strongly done, very well worth it watching first episode. Frankly, I'm going to be watching the next series. I'm going to be making this a Tuesday night special, if you will. I'm going to be watching the next episode on the 14th of September, next Tuesday, and I'm going to have my written and video reviews of it up on the 15th. And I would frankly love it if you'd join me. I'll see you then, folks. Have a good weekend, and go watch Lovecraft Country.